Hello my friends, and welcome back to the Pin Drop Shop. This is episode 4 of the Basic Alteration Sewing Skill series. In this series I'm going to take you through your clothing items. We're going to figure out what's wrong with each item, fix it, alter it, and get it so you can wear it again. So today what we're going to be working on is a pair of dress pants that are just a little too snug in the waistband. So we're going to be letting out the excess fabric that's at the back seam here to make the waistband bigger. So let's get started. Here's what you're going to need. Scissors, sewing pins, a seam ripper, all-purpose sewing machine thread that matches your pants, a sewing machine, and a tape measure. First, you need to determine how much bigger you want the pants to be. Measure your waist with the measuring tape and add a ½ inch to an inch to that measurement. Then measure the waistband at its current measurement and determine how much you need to add. For example, if your waist is 40 inches, your ideal new waistband measurement would be 40½ to 41 inches. If you measured the pants at their current size and they were only 39 inches, that would mean you need to make the waistband bigger by 1½ to 2 inches. So then we need to figure out if that much fabric is actually available to be let out. We have a limit to how much we can add to the waistband, and it depends on this seam at the back of the pants. If we look inside the pants, we can measure how much extra fabric is here in the seam. If there's at least 1½ inch to 2 inches extra fabric over both sides of this seam combined, then that means we have enough and we can proceed in making these pants fit. So on this particular pair of pants, I'm going to let them out by 2 inches. So there's more than 2 inches of excess here, so we can do it. Just remove the stitches that are holding this waistband folded down. We're not opening this yet. We also need to remove the belt loop. And any stitches inside that are preventing that from opening all the way flat. Now that the back of the pants are all opened up, you can see that we'll just take this seam and close it like a book. Flip everything over to one side like this. And we'll sew our new seam right here. So since I'm adding a 2 inches to this waistband, I'm going to divide that in half because 1 inch will go to this side of the material, 1 inch will go to the other side. And I'm going to be sewing here, so you can use pins or a pencil or anything to mark this 1 inch or whatever your measurement is. Half of the total amount you want added to your waistband. I'm just measuring over 1 inch, and I'm just drawing a little line with my pins to give myself a visual to go by when I sew. So you want it to maintain being 1 inch over from the old seam until you get past all of the parts that are part of the waistband. Then we will slowly taper it down so that it can meet up with the old line of stitching. So it's going to become less and less than 1 inch. And the more gradual you can make this taper, the better it's going to look. So all the way down here is where all 4 points intersect at the crotch. We're going to come up a little bit from there, maybe 2 or 3 inches, and that's going to be the point where I choose to get my new seam to meet with the old seam. It has to meet up with the old seam or there will be a gap. So I'm just going to put a pin to mark that, and then I'm just going to keep adding pins to create a line from these pins that were measured over 1 inch. I'm going to do another one at 1 inch right here. This is about 2 inches down from where the waistband seam is. And at that point, I'm going to begin tapering from this pin to this pin. If you can just draw an imaginary line from one to the other, we're no longer paying attention to whether it's an inch from that seam because it's going to be less. So these pins will be where I sew. Thread your machine with the coordinating thread. If you need help with that part, see our other videos. And then set your machine to a straight stitch. Position the fabric under the presser foot so that the needle will be lined up with the pins that we used to draw our line. Come in a little bit from the back and put your presser foot down. Remove the first pin. You can see my needle's not all the way at the back. I'm in right here, so I can begin with a back stitch. And then go almost to the top and then go forward. Just remember to aim your sewing for the next pin in our imaginary line. And remove the pins as you get to them. There's some heavy interfacing here that's quite stiff. So I'm going to hand crank the wheel a few times through that to make sure it's not going to be a problem for the machine. Maybe I'll hit the pedal now. Seems to be okay. I forgot to mention this before, but it's always easier if you place your pins with the heads down, so you can just pull them right out rather than up how I had it, where you have to pull towards the needle. So no big deal. Now we're getting close to our needle that we marked that's on the original line of stitching. So I'm going to now take that one out, and I'm going to point my sewing towards that line of stitching until I'm lining up with it and stitching right over it. And I'm going to end with a back stitch of about 3 or 4 stitches. So now we can take this out. A new line down here. We're going to rip out the old stitches up here, which will allow the pants to open up bigger. Here's how it looks from the back of the pants. So you can see they used to only be this big, and now they're this big. So we just need to clean up all these threads, and we can give it a little press. So from the inside of the pants, we'll open the seam and iron it over. So now all that's left to do is to stitch this back down and put our belt loop back on. Look inside the waistband to determine the last place where the waistband was attached, folded, and that's where we're going to flip over and begin our stitching. So position the pants underneath the presser foot so that the needle is going to come down right in the ditch or the seam, like that. Lower down. And I'm going to take the first one by hand so I can make sure the needle goes right into that ditch. Okay. I'm going to start with a back stitch and then go forward, just taking my time and staying inside that seam. This way it'll be almost invisible from the outside. I'm just going to hand crank through this bulky section. And when you reach the end where it's last been attached, then go ahead and backstitch. On the belt loop, you'll see one end is folded a second time and is bigger. That's going to go on the bottom. Okay, position it under the presser foot so that your needle's only going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from this upper edge. And begin sewing across, and you may need to hand crank it if it's too thick for your machine. Like that, but I think it's going to be okay. So just go forward and then go backward. And then go forward again. And maybe backward again. And that should be good. Same thing for the bottom part of the belt loop. Just fold it the way that it was. So fold it that way and then that way. Lay it down right in the middle of that center seam, and then we'll stitch really close to the bottom edge of the belt loop. Maybe 1/8 of an inch, if that. Alright my friends, I hope you enjoyed episode 4 of the Basic Alteration Sewing Skills series. If you did, please give my video a like. If you tried this, please comment below. I would love to know how it went. And to make sure you don't miss out on next week's episode, make sure you subscribe to the Pin Drop Shop channel. So thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, happy sewing!